Hey, welcome to another StartupSac podcast where we do interviews with Sacramento startup founders and innovators. Today I'm at the top floor of Newmark Cornish Carey, and with me I have Mariah Lichtenstern.
Mariah Lichtenstern.
So Mariah, thanks for being here, and why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, and then we can go from there.
Sure, okay. So my background is as an entrepreneur. I founded my first company, Let Start Entertainment, as a boutique production company as an undergrad at UC Berkeley, after a friend of mine gave me a copy of Rich Dad Poor Dad, which sparked my interest in entrepreneurship. So I ran that, went through various iterations for 13 years, and after coming up to Sacramento, I enrolled in a technology entrepreneurship class with the goal of starting Cineshares, which is the startup that I run now. And the technology entrepreneurship class funneled me into the Kauffman Fellows Academy, where I met Rusty Dornan. And in conversation with her about Cineshares and wanting it to be the equivalent of venture capital for the entertainment industry and my interest in venture capital at large, she encouraged me to apply to the Kauffman Fellows Society. And that really, blew open some doors in Silicon Valley, which I had been very active in. I'm a native of the Oakland Bay area. And so that pretty much launched me into what I'm doing now with DivereCity Ventures. I'm still running Cineshares, but DivereCity Ventures is an impact-oriented micro-venture capital firm, which I co-founded with Gabor Sechi. And so that's a little bit about my background.
For those who don't know, why don't you explain what the Kauffman program was?
Absolutely. So the Kauffman Foundation is basically created to empower entrepreneurs, and the Kauffman Fellows Society is a spinoff of that, which is basically a network, a global network of smart connected capital. It's innovators, it's venture capitalists, and leaders in the innovation ecosystem. So that's what they foster, that network and ecosystem. So I am really privileged to be a part of it. Mm-hmm. It's wonderful people.
So entrepreneurship is in your blood, basically. You're in it. You've dove in fully.
I think it was always in me. There's even if you work in a corporate setting, there's that entrepreneurial bug. There's certain people who are just wired to work through lunch and stay longer hours. I think you can recognize it, call it workaholic, or whatever. So I think some people are just kind of wired, and when you're given the opportunity to apply that to your own business, it just accentuates it. So the fact that I was exposed to entrepreneurship at a young age definitely put me on that track. And I'm reminded after coming back from Founder X these past 3 days of that special gene that I think entrepreneurs have. I mean, we were so driven, getting 2 and 3 hours of sleep per night, but still, up and wired and ready to go, and just tuned in to the opportunity to meet different investors and directors and entrepreneurs from around the world and put our minds together in this brain trust as to how we can globalize Silicon Valley and create jobs and change the world. So, yeah.
So that's a good segue. I found out about a program that you are spearheading here, I believe, Founders Institute, which is that a global program?
It absolutely is.
A global program.
So the Founder Institute was created by Dale Resi, who's a serial entrepreneur. I could wax poetic about him and his background, but essentially it is an idea stage accelerator, so to speak. And it's in, I think, 60 countries. It's launched over 3,000 companies, created over 20,000 jobs. And this week, one of the things that we heard from the directors in Vietnam. They've been there for 5 years. When they went there, they were the only resource really in the ecosystem. And now in 5 years, it's flourished. And 20% of the startups in that economy are Founder Institute graduates. So I've been a part of it since 2015. I graduated from the Silicon Valley cohort, spring 2015, and I've just seen it grow. It was already around the world in every time zone, but I've just seen it grow. I've seen it improve. I see them continue to improve. And so it was wonderful that Gabor, my partner in DivereCity Ventures, and Veronica Smith with the City of Sacramento Economic Development and with the Seed Corporation that we were able to get together and really push to launch it here. And actually, the Founder Institute has been looking at Sacramento for a number of reasons. The fact that the city recognizes the importance of innovation and entrepreneurship, the fact that it's this proximity that's so advantageous to the Bay Area, the work that people have done in this ecosystem, from Impact BC and Urban Hive, the things that are opening up, bio labs, Hacker Lab, which is growing and reaching different parts of our rather large geography. That all of that has been laid as a foundation makes Sacramento a really attractive place to now transplant both the resources that the Silicon Valley headquarters brings to the table, but then also the other best practices from other parts of the world.
Was that an idea that's been percolating for a while to bring it here? And
yes, I believe there was another exploratory pre-launch that kind of evolved into another organization, and they're very methodical about evaluating whether an ecosystem is ready for a Founder Institute or can support a Founder Institute. So yeah, there had been interest. It's been on their radar. The fact that there's so many colleges, so much talent, and with the HP layoffs, a lot of that talent was released, and they didn't necessarily want to move. I mean, it's a beautiful city. It's a great place to live. There's a lot to offer. Great place to raise a family, right? So when that talent was displaced, it really created more opportunities for this technical talent to apply that to startups, and so they've definitely had their eye on it. And I think this is the time to seize the moment.
So can you explain a little bit about what the program's like for those out there who might watch it, and we'll get into some of the events that you've got planned here in Sacramento in the coming months. But how does the program work, and who's it for, and that kind of thing?
Okay, well, so it's for anybody who wants to start a business, I should say a scalable business. We specialize in technology businesses, but it can also be applied technology. It could be it's not going to be your mom and pop's SMB.
Right.
It's really something that can scale, that could potentially be venture backed. But it's really for anyone who has an idea and they want to know, how do I launch this into the world? And they could be working full time. It's really for very, very early stage founders. So what the program is like, first of all, we have applicants take an entrepreneurial DNA test, which basically identifies if they have the traits to support their endeavor as entrepreneurs. And so we look for a couple things like resilience, fluid intelligence. We don't look at IQ, that's irrelevant, and they've done extensive tests, and they've had different behavioral scientists come in to create this test. It's about a 45-minute test. But we do, and we look for things that, like narcissism and aggressiveness, that they're bad indicators. So we weed those out. But we look for, openness, fluid intelligence, the ability to be resilient.
The resilience is a huge one. I mean, there's so many up and downs in the entrepreneurial world that you've got to be able to persist.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So there's 6 archetypes that they've identified, and I don't know if I can name all 6, but just to give an example: visionary, strategist, hustler, the machine, a couple others. But they're archetypes of entrepreneurs that tend to do really, really well. And it's interesting because they tend to be concentrated in different geographies and different compositions. So yeah, they've done a lot of work on this, and they've been in Fortune and Inc. and tons of magazines. So that's step 1, just identifying, are you entrepreneur? Do you have entrepreneur?
So any applicant's going to have to take that test.
Yes. So they can apply and take it later. It depends on at what point they apply. But everyone who gets in takes the test. So there is a selection. And then, one of the things that differentiates the Founder Institute is that, not everyone graduates. When I was in Silicon Valley, I came in with a cohort of 50, 11 graduated.
Wow.
But everyone who does not graduate is invited to come back and maybe rework their idea, but they know where their weaknesses were, what they need to go work on, and they're still part of that community. So when I go to events, I see people who didn't graduate with my cohort that maybe came back or plan to come back, and they're still welcome in the community, and they're still taking advantage of that network of mentors and directors and other entrepreneurs. But so, basically it starts from ideation, and we go through everything from, corporate formation, pitching. We pitch every single week. It's a 14-week program. So when they come out, they're polished pitchers. In fact, Founder Institute graduates have a wonderful track record of winning pitch competitions. So it's something we're increasingly encouraging graduates to do. And now, because I'm part of the director ecosystem, I got a sneak peek into some of the things that are rolling out, even to help graduates continue their momentum and get funding. So basically, it's just week by week, you have to complete different challenges for your startup, and it is a program in which you execute. And our curriculum is state of the art, it's world class, best practices, tried and true over 7 years, all over the world.
So what's the goal for graduates to be able to do once they've graduated, to be able to go out and pitch for a Series A round, a seed round? What's the hope of Founders Institute once the graduate goes out?
The number one concern, and this really came out during FounderX this year, we want these to be viable companies. And each entrepreneur is going to have a different path when they graduate. Some are going to be ready for funding. Some have gotten funding while they're in the program. Others is going to be another 6 months, 9 months, 2 years. Some are going to bootstrap. Some are going to achieve revenue, and they may never need to take capital. We want to support our founders in connecting with capital they need to grow rapidly, because we're born out of more of the VC, Silicon Valley model. But the objective is that they have a viable business. They're not just a business that's propped up. They're not zombie companies. We want them to really have thought through all of the processes and frameworks that they need to successfully run a company and grow a company. So that's the objective. But again, we are very assertive and aggressive about empowering founders after they graduate. So once they graduate, there's a whole nother back end where they can connect with other people that they need to go to the next level.
Is that networking kind of a stuff like other accelerators like 500 Startups have? The cohorts seriously bond, and that network they create is often the number one thing they cite about the experience. Is it that, or is it more than that?
It's more than that. I mean, it's definitely that. It's over 4,000 people in the network around the world. And we're talking about, top companies. Evernote came out of the Founder Institute. There's so many that I could name. A Realty Mogul in LA is skilling it. Let's see, there's just so many that have come out that are very successful companies. And there's investors in our network. Jason Calacanis, he has his own accelerator and launch festival, but he and Adeo are good friends. They support each other. Adeo always judges launch, and so our entrepreneurs can go into that program. They often go into 500 or YC or other top accelerators, Techstars. So there's not only the network, but there's the support system, because we're headquartered in Silicon Valley, and so there are staff members there that are very active in supporting directors, in supporting founders, in supporting mentors, and then there's the technology that Adeo built. And again, it's a well-oiled machine.
So any graduates, people apply here in Sacramento and go through a program, they'll have direct access through that network to Silicon Valley, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. To Silicon Valley and the rest
of the world.
Yeah, so if they want to launch a global company, this will accelerate their ability to do that, because they can reach out to someone in Singapore and say, hey, I'm interested in launching in Singapore. Can you point me in the direction of this? And they have world-class entrepreneurs, mentors, and directors that can help to facilitate those introductions. And that just puts them years and years ahead. They can avoid so many mistakes. So I think the really awesome thing about the Founder Institute is it literally is world-class best practices, and it's an incredible support system that you have the opportunity to influence. We have events. Every graduate can go and participate anywhere in the world in a session that's going on. So they can go and meet mentors in that ecosystem. Any graduate from Sacramento could go to Silicon Valley, San Francisco, Palo Alto, and sit in on the session and meet those mentors. We go to the bar afterwards. We hang out sometimes until 2 in.the.morning. So you really develop relationships. It's amazing. So
getting back to the specifics of the program here, it hasn't launched yet. You've got your first event, I believe, next Tuesday. Is that right? Yes. Here. Talk a little bit about that event and the others that are coming up, and how people here in Sacramento can apply and get involved in this.
Wonderful. Okay, so you can apply on fi.co and just select from the top right Sacramento. You can take a look at some of the other countries and regions that are on there. Our first event on Tuesday is going to be focused on making the leap from employee to entrepreneur. We'll start at 6:30. It'll be here in the beautiful Newmark Carey. What is it? Newmark Carey.
Newmark Cornish Carey.
But you're changing it, right?
No, Newmark Cornish Carey.
Okay, Newmark Cornish Carey. So our first event will be Tuesday here at Newmark Cornish Carey.
And the 25th floor with a great view.
Floor with an amazing view, and that will be focused on making the jump from employee to entrepreneur.
Okay.
We have some wonderful mentors that will be there, both as speakers and some that will be mingling among us. So it's up to entrepreneurs to seize the opportunity and connect with some hidden gems in our ecosystem.
Okay. And is that, I assume the sign up for that is also on fi.co?
fi.co.
Okay.
We also have a meetup. We have a Facebook group.
Okay.
So there's many opportunities to connect with us and start the networking there.
And we'll also have all this information on startupsac.com too,
Okay.
for what it's worth. And then there's another event, I believe, in the 1st of June.
Yeah, so all the dates are on the website. Thankfully, because my capacity after 3 days of hobnobbing with entrepreneurs is limited. But yeah, so everything is on the website. We plan to have the first 3 exploratory sessions. We'll gauge the turnout, but we have 9 total scheduled over the course of the summer.
Wow.
And if there's sufficient interest, then we will launch the semester in September, and that will run through December.
Okay, so all these events this summer are kind of exploratory to see what the market's like. You're doing market validation, just like a startup would do.
Yeah, we
Okay.
do dog food. We take our own advice.
Hopefully, everybody listening to that knows the reference of eating the dog.
Yeah, don't really eat dog food. You don't need to do that to be an entrepreneur. But
It's taking your own advice.
taking our own advice. So yeah, they're free events. They're a lot of fun. You'll hear from mentors, so there's definitely going to be value to them in the ecosystem, and we'll be able to see who's out there, and hopefully, get some new people in the doors, and hopefully we'll be launching in September. So far, just gauging the metrics and indicators across the networks that we publish through, they're looking good compared to other ecosystems that are similar to ours. So we're very hopeful and excited about the unique opportunities in Sacramento.
I think there's a demand. I mean, when I've done enough interviews now, 30 or so for this podcast, and there's an interest, I think, in the community, the early stage founders, for programs like this. So I'm excited to see what happens out of it.
I'm excited too, because there's already so much going on here, and I think that because we're such an early stage organization, that we take them through such a process that by the time they graduate, they'll be able to feed into other co-working spaces and opportunities that are here. They'll add more value to the ecosystem. So I'm really excited about working with the other things that are going on and seeding this geography with all of the best practices from Silicon Valley.
Is there you talked a little bit about some of the things you test for, but is there anything any qualities or indicators you're looking for in people to apply?
Well, I can say this. We're open, because entrepreneurs will surprise you with what they think up. It may be truly off the radar. I mean, so many people thought Airbnb and Uber were horrible ideas, and I guess some of it has yet to be seen.
Well, do people have to have an idea yet, or?
We'd like them to have an idea.
Okay.
But we found, and this is something we also discussed over the past few days, that there are basically 3 types of entrepreneurs that we see. There's those who are highly skilled and entrepreneurial, but they may not have their own idea.
Right.
And then there are those that have domain expertise, and they may be professionals. And then there's like seasoned serial entrepreneurs. And they all do well. But we have found that the first group that don't have an idea, I mean, there are some amazing companies that have come out. Even Udemy, it started as something totally different and evolved, but it's one of the stellar companies. And so they don't have to have an idea, but a lot of times what happens is those founders join other founders that may have an idea but need a co-founder.
That's kind of what we see. I help organize startup weekends here, and that's kind of what we see there. Some people, they think they have to have an idea, but no. I mean, if you've got skills, you can go and help other people who have an idea.
Absolutely. It's amazing what can happen on a whiteboard, right?
Yeah.
I've participated in Startup Weekend at Draper University, and they are amazing. It's a great resource to have. That's another example, and I'm glad that you brought that up. It's another example where hopefully there'll be symbiosis over the years, and we can feed into each other.
We've had some good events here. So anything else you'd like to chat about Founders Institute?
Well, I would just like to encourage people to come out, and even if you don't have an idea or you're not sure if it's for you, come and hear from the mentors and meet others in the ecosystem, And all of that feeds in over the course of time to growing this ecosystem. Let's create jobs, let's create businesses, let's change the world.
Awesome. So I always like to end with some questions with some advice or tips for other entrepreneurs out there. So you're an entrepreneur. What advice or tips do you have to share with others out there? And I mostly look at advice for early stage founders and entrepreneurs.
Oh gosh, I have tons of them, but let's see, the top ones, I would say, number one, if you're serious about it, never give up. And Adeo, I love what he says is the reason why companies fail, the number one reason companies fail is because the founder gives up. I mean, some companies shouldn't keep going. You have to, have discernment, like this is not gonna work. But if you know in your heart and you're really passionate about it, it can work, and maybe you're creating a market, you just have to say, okay, I have to figure out a way to get through this problem that I'm facing because I know that there's a need and I'm not gonna give up. And you just have to have that resilience, you have to have that grit, which is something that venture capitalists look for, something mentors look for. You just have to develop that confidence and trust your gut and build your skill set. But I think the number one thing is persistence.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. Okay, thank you very much for your time. Any last thing, shout outs or anything to anybody?
Shout out to Startup Sacramento.
Oh, thank you.
Amazing. I love the map that you created. I love
thank you.
being in the newsletter. So shout out to you, and
awesome.
Shout out to Veronica and Gabor. And shout out to all the entrepreneurs that we're going to hang out with on Tuesday.
All right, thanks. And for once again, fi.co to get more information. And we hope to see everybody here next Tuesday.
Come out wherever you are.
All right, thank you.